Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions! We're doing another episode! This episode is number 15, General Natural Law Questions. So for those of you who have had any questions, you're following the grinding series, this episode is for you. And I do want to apologize. Sorry, not sorry. I know this content, I'm still in the city of Chang'an. I'm still in the same city. I'm going to be doing the same boss as I've been doing in the last couple episodes, unfortunately, until I level up and I can beat, I forgot the name of the boss, until I can beat him without getting absolutely whooped. And, you know, the reason why I said not sorry is because this series is called Grinding. This is the grind. You know, I'm showing you guys what I do while playing Titan Quest. This is exactly what I do. I just get knowledge, and that's what a part of this knowledge is. It's a grind, you know. You're not gonna learn all of this stuff in a day. You're not gonna learn all this stuff in a month. Maybe not even in a year. I'm still learning every day. It is a serious grind, but it is worth it. You know, like if you ever had a good teacher in high school or elementary school, that good teacher will probably reminded you as a student when you were in school that learning should not stop. When you leave the school, learning should not stop. And it just like, if you are a true Christian, you know, when you leave the church, you know, like your faith should not cease to happen as soon as you leave the building, right? That's kind of like, it's blasphemous in a way. You should constantly be learning. You should constantly always have your faith. And, you know, and there's a book on the list of book reviews that we're going to get to called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance that gets into that very topic of, like, you know, when you're at a church and if you're a true Christian, when you leave the building, or if the building, like, ceases to be a church and it becomes a bar, is it still a place of worship, or, you know, has it been tainted with? That's a question with the answer. The answer I'll leave to you. We're gonna, without further ado, let's start grinding. I'm gonna beat the same bosses. Yeah, like, I don't care. Get over it. This is what grinding is, and this is also the best way in this game to get better gear. And I definitely need better gear, because the way that my character build is a brigand, it's a rogue, and a hunter mastery. So those are notorious, or at least the rogue is notorious for not doing a lot of damage. So, yeah, I definitely need better gear. But I've talked enough. Here we go. Let's get some knowledge. Let's go.
And that's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue. It's because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy, like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Today is August 13th, 2020. I am your host, Nate Cap, joined by co-host Brandon Martin. Welcome to the 15th CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. On the last show, we got into and broke down the 7 Hermetic principles, which are mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, and then the 8th principle, which is the generative principle, or the principle of true care. If you haven't already and you want to understand the rest of this content, we highly recommend starting at podcast 1 or podcast 9 for natural law, as it won't be much of benefit to not have the prerequisites needed to understand the rest of what we share here for that topic. But definitely start at 1 to get the better understanding of the rest of the show. Also, I know people love solutions, and we will be covering many solutions in the future, but it is also important to understand that this whole show is one big solution of solutions. It's a repository of important, evolutionary content that when taken in and applied to life, it expands consciousness into higher frequencies of love and freedom. That's what we're about here. So on this show, I'm going to ask Brandon a series of general questions that get asked a lot when it comes to natural law. How's it going, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Nate, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be back on the show with you to help spread this information far and wide to all like minds.
For sure. So here's the first question I'm going to ask. How is lying a harmful action if it's not an actual physical action?
Well, that's a very interesting question that you have proposed there. The first thing is I would consider it a form of action. I think that we do kind of negate the idea that, linguistics is a form of action. We usually don't associate those two. But when it comes to rights, we do have to understand that, anything that's done with our physical body is a form of action. And linguistics is performed with our physical body. So it is a form of action. It is our consciousness being directed through will to make physical change in our environment. So when it comes to lying, and this is a question that I get asked quite a bit. How is lying a violation of somebody else's rights? Well, the first thing is that you are taking another's ability to engage in an informed decision-making process, which does not belong to anybody else besides that individual themselves. So we kind of explained this when we went through the transgressions a little bit. So whenever a person is in a situation where there is nobody initiating violence upon them, and then the individual lies to a group or an individual or a single person, then that would be considered a violation of the other being's rights when they need that information to make a proper decision and make a proper choice from that. Let's say, I gave this example the last time, which is if there was a young girl and you guys were, out, let's say, meeting each other on a college campus or something like this, and then she lied to you about her age, and then you guys proceeded to go on a date, and things escalated, and later on you found out that she was underage. She was 17 and she wasn't 18. Well, that was a violation of your right because you did not know what the needed information is to make a healthy, discernible choice in that situation to steer away from harm being done, because that could be harmful upon you. You could be, held liable for sleeping with an underage individual. So that can be harmful onto you. So you're violating somebody else's right to actually make that decision. Now, I will say that there are certain situations when you are being violated, when you yourself have been initiated with violence, that maybe you do need to lie in that situation. But we have to understand that violence has been initiated, meaning that now you must take self-defensive action to prevent harm from being done. So that's when, lying... I wouldn't like to use the word lying there. I would call it something else. Maybe we can come up with a new term for that. I'm sure somebody else could, help me out with another phrase to place in there. But for the purpose of this conversation, we'll just use lying. Lying at that point may actually protect your rights, protect your ability. So let's say somebody is threatening you with violence through gunpoint or something like that to, try to get to your children or something like that. And you need to lie to protect your children from this individual in certain scenarios like this. that's your self-defense. That's self-defense. That's not a violation of anybody's right. So we just have to be really oriented when it comes to these terms, because our language is irrefutably destroyed pretty much, in our modern day. So, we can use these terms, but we don't really have a finite understanding of them. That's what we need. We need a definition of that. We need to bring it down into a finite understanding of what we're talking about here. So I see a lot of people using these terms vastly and not really getting to the actual application, the pragmatic application of them into reality. And when we understand them that way, we can understand how they are either a violation of somebody else's rights or just an act of force to create goodness and wholeness, and an action that does not violate anybody else's rights is what I'm trying to say.
So basically, lying is a harmful action because it's putting someone else at risk through not allowing them to make a truthful, critical decision to protect themselves. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, because you are limiting the other sentient being's capability in engaging in information that is needed for them to make an accurate choice. So whenever we have the control of information, you're pretty much controlling the amount of potentials that other people have to make an accurate choice, because that's what we're based off of, is the ability to take in information, process it, and then put it out. Human beings are programmable from information. And if you're putting in corrupted information, if you're putting in lies, then you will get garbage out, from that. The result from that, the consequences of that will be bad. And if you are putting in truth into the system, then you will get goodness from that. You will have an accurate, decision-making process, and you will have an orderly outcome because of that.
Exactly. The more we lie, the more we put other people in harm's way, because the lie is obviously not based in truth, because it doesn't allow people to have an accurate understanding of what is actually taking place. Therefore, how or what a person does with the lie they're told can lead to something dangerous or harmful.
Well, I want to add into this is we see this with mainstream media, right? And
exactly.
We have these groups in the truth community. I see this in the truth movement, where they protect the mainstream media, the lies, under this idea of freedom of speech. Well, your freedom of speech, key word there, freedom, is about rights. It is about that which is correct. That's what freedom is based off of, is what is correct. It's based off of morality. So if you are lying to people, and because of those lies, the freedom that you have is being destroyed, then you do not have that right. It's not your right to do that. It's not the freedom of speech, because it's not moral. And this is a big issue that we find with a lot of people. Yes, you have the right to introduce controversial information that it's going to make people feel uncomfortable and things like that. But making people feel uncomfortable is not destroying anybody's rights. Okay, bringing in the truth when you have been programmed with lies for so long is not destroying anybody's rights. It's actually going to set you free from the illusions that you believe, that you've been mind controlled with. So we have to understand what freedom of speech actually means. It means responsibility is what it means. Mm-hmm. And people don't have responsibility with freedom, and that's why we're losing freedoms, is because they don't want to take responsibilities for their freedoms. They think they can do whatever they want without consequences. And that's not true. There's always going to be consequences whenever we perform anything in physical manifestation.
Exactly. Very well said. It's so important to understand how lying leads to long-lasting harmful effects, especially when we understand how harmful lies are to us while under mind control.
Well, let's ask this, Nate. What is a lie based off of? Well, it's based off of fear.
Right.
It's based off of a fear-based consciousness, because someone who is lying is scared of something, because they don't want somebody else to know, because obviously there must be something wrong by that, you know? This is just generally going off the definition that we are using here, which is taking another ability's capacity to make an informed decision-making process. You know, we're not talking about those situations where you've been violated and you may need to lie to get out of that, because there are situations like that. But we're talking generally where you're not being violated, right? Then you yourself must be in a state of fear consciousness to want to lie, you know? And I mean, we see this all over the board, and it's something that I think has been done to us through trauma-based mind control and maybe even deeper seeds of traumatic history of our species over a long period of time, where we are just so in darkness that, you know, we feel that we have to protect ourselves, which is an illusion. This isn't actually protection, through like lying to other people, or we want to get something from other people and we don't think that we can get that from them unless we lie. So it's all based in control and fear. And that's what that's based off of, because you're trying to control another person. You're trying to control what they think and what they do with what they think and how they feel.
Absolutely. And something we're going to get deep into on future shows is mind control. And when I say mind control, I'm talking about others controlling our mind. Of course, what we unveil about mind control has everything to do with us taking back our mind with our own control. And like Brandon said, it's about fear and control. It's about those who understand the human mind and desire control of us, but it's based in fear and lies. We're being lied to through fear of us learning this type of information. Because if we deeply learn the techniques of mind control, we won't need them to control us anymore. We won't need them to tell us what to think, what to believe, and how to feel, you know? The main point is lying leads to harm, especially under fear with the intent to control. So the next question I have, were you
I was just going to say, the whole idea of man controlling things in the extent is part of the problem with our species, because we believe we have the authority over what other people think and how they feel and what they do, when we don't. And that's what I mean by controlling the extent, is controlling anything external of oneself, you know?
Right.
That we're trying to manipulate other sentient beings with our own consciousness. And it is a form of mind control. Lying is a form of mind control. It is just a really, really, low degree or low level of mind control. But that's what mind control is. The base of it is about lying, You're
right.
programming people with lies so that they do what you want them to do. So, I mean, this is a big thing, and I feel that it does need to be hammered on a little bit more, because I see people putting out lies left and right, and sometimes they're even unconscious about what they're putting out as a lie, right?
Right.
That they're like ancillary liars, they're the extension of the liar itself. That the lie gets propagated into the field and into the society, and then you get these secondary liars that take that information as true, and then they go and they start putting it out there when they've never done their due diligence to know whether it's true or not.
Right.
And they've never done their homework.
Right.
And this is a real big problem, especially in the truth community, supposed quote unquote truth community, right?
Right.
And I hate to really hammer on that, but I mean, it is sad to see that they're just so gullible. People in these communities, doesn't even have to be the truth community, but any of these communities, they're so gullible and naive. They're reaching out to find solutions and answers, but because they're in that receptive process of their consciousness, their defenses are down, their firewalls are down, so they're allowing viruses to get into their minds. And then what do you see in society? More viruses being put out,
Right, yeah.
And we don't have any kind of antiviral programs running, and that's what we need. We need antiviral programs running in our minds constantly, because we're in an information war, and people need to get that through their heads, that this is a war of information, because information controls consciousness. So it's a war on consciousness through information.
Right. And something I want to add is some other actions of lying. I don't believe a lot of these people are lying on purpose, but they are lying because their logic isn't aligned with their research. And there's these types of people, what I like to call, obviously what most people know, conspiracy theorists, but then you also have the non-conspiracy theorists. You have the conspiracy theorists who just run with an idea that someone shared, and they don't have any research into it at all. And then they go and act like this is the ultimate truth of what's really going on. And there might be some truth to it, But the thing is, they themselves have not researched it enough to be able to explain it to people. But let's just say that there's the flat earth conspiracy theorists who go running with this idea, and it gets disproven, right? And so there might be a little bit of truth in some of the things they say, but really you can disprove what they are talking about very easily. But then you have those same people talking about fluoride and, talking about how bad that is for our pineal gland, which that has empirical evidence. That is true. All right. Well, so you have a conspiracy theorist who's talking about fluoride, but also simultaneously talking about the flat earth, which then that gives people the option to put them in a box. So anyone talking about fluoride is automatically a flat earther. Well, obviously that's not true, but that's how people categorize people. That's how people judge people. That's, I see it all the time, especially politically. Like, if you are, pro-gun, that means you're pro-Trump. Well, obviously that's part of the other non-conspiracy theorists. Non-conspiracy conspiracy theorists are the people who I would say are the ones who run with everything that the mainstream media says as truth. And obviously, they are definitely wrong a lot of the times because they have not done any research, any real research. The non-conspiracy conspiracy theorists are the ones that will, go to who they believe is the authority rather than going and looking at all sides of the spectrum. They're going to someone who they believe has all the answers when really it's about understanding how to look for the answers really, deep within. The point is that you have these non-conspiracy conspiracy theorists who believe and have faith in these authority media outlets, these mainstream authority media outlets. And then you have these conspiracy theorists who also have belief and faith in these, these memes that are going around with these little, pockets of truth that probably have truth, but they're not completely based in truth. And, obviously, something I definitely want to get into is cul-de-sacs. You're stuck on one topic where people talk about it and sensationalize it all the time and not really, go and look at in all the avenues of information to find the truth. To go further, to go deeper in your research.
Right. So maybe we should clarify a little bit here because, these people, like the people you're talking about, they are taking something from a liar and then propagating that lie as a truth. And we have to understand that when it comes to a lie itself, it's a conscious act when it comes to that. It's a conscious decision. I'm going to lie about this. And it might be a split second. And then when that's taken as truth by other people, they don't even realize that they've become a antenna or a radio for a transmitter of that lie. They've amplified that lie. They're not the initiators of that lie themselves, but now they're a means for that lie to spread out, which means they're responsible for what's going on. You know, they're responsible for how that is taking place and taking hold in society. So just think of all the people that fall into the mainstream media, right? And then they all watch it, and then they go out and they talk about it and they bicker about it everywhere. They are the amplifiers of the lies, and that's how it gets done. And that, because where we put our consciousness at, the energy will go there, and it's going to amplify that. You know, it's going to make it, depending on how we're looking at that, our perception of that. If we believe full-heartedly in that lie, and then we go out and we speak it as a truth, it's going to amplify that into our field of consciousness. And we need to be very, very responsible when it comes to our field of information, especially right now. And I like what you were talking about with the conspiracy theorists and the non-conspiracy theorists, and, you know, you're just dead on with that.
It's very, especially, you know, now with what's going on with the pandemic, you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing people who are all about mainstream science, and then you're seeing the people who are called the conspiracy theorists, who are coming from the underground, and, you know, they have radical ideas. But then if you're not looking into those on both sides, both ideas, the radical ideas and then the mainstream ideas, then you don't have a well-rounded idea of what's really going on. And that means that if you're picking one side and leaving out the other, well, that's a form of lying, because now you're saying that you know what the other side is. You already have it all figured out, right? And, you know, that can lead to harm, because it's about being in an imbalance. You're not balanced to have a critical decision-making process of figuring out what is true and then spreading that truth. You know, if you're picking one side or the other, you're only taking half of the truth, which is there's a lie hidden in there. And you have to, that's right, you have to figure out what that is. You have to weed it out and come to a critical decision that is well-rounded and where you have logic from both sides, and bring it into the middle to see exactly what's going on, so you have a better understanding. It's not about being right or being wrong. It's about understanding that, you know, what the truth is between the two, between the lie and the truth, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, it reminds me of that quote from Joseph Goebbels, right, from the Third Reich, and their crazy propaganda campaign. And I think he said, make the lie big, keep it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it.
That's so true. And that's exactly, okay, for instance, you know, and I'm just using this as an example because it's fresh in everyone's mind. When you keep on hearing the word cases, right? It's just like 9/11 when they said terrorism. Now it's cases, big numbers, cases. And everybody is just like really hooked on that whole idea that cases means deaths. That's what people are so afraid of. And it's like, you're not using logic. You're not understanding that there is almost less than, 1% deaths in the whole world from this thing, right? So, and I digress. You have to understand that is leading to harmful action, because now we are all being, now you have people saying that you can be, jailed for attempted murder for not wearing a mask. That's what people want right now. That's how crazy it's made people. So it's...
Oh, yeah. That's a great spot to take a break. I'm going to use the bathroom, but I'm going to come right back and start grinding some more. We have let's see, look at the map. So we got to go through this cave system right here on the bottom. Go through this cave system. And then I think the caves will take us back out. Like somewhere out in the bamboo forest. Somewhere around here, maybe. Cave system takes us back out over here. I can't remember where it was at. But yeah. So, yep, this is the grind. Thank you if you've made it this far. We're going to finish episode 15 at the next episode. Thank you for choosing Beagle Eye Visions. And we will be back.